Today's episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. Liz, they are doing a virtual community of practice, a COP, on May 14th. Oh, how nice is it to think about May 14th? What's happening outside your window, Doc?
About 14 inches of snow so far and still falling.
Just keeps coming, which is why we're behind our beautiful green screens. We have both picked an image to represent where we would like to be right now. I mean, we're together, which is awesome, but I would like to be somewhere in South Florida. I don't know. Where are you?
I'd like to be on the Long Island Sound.
Nice. That's actually where the snow is the worst right now. The reporters
It is.
this morning from the coast of New Jersey, like the Jersey Shore and the Long Island Sound, doing that classic weather.com thing. Anyhow, back to NCGM. They're sponsoring this community of practice May 14th, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is on AI and manufacturing in collaboration with the NAAIC, and you can learn more at nextgenmfg.org. These things are free. Anybody can join. Great conversation. Please be with them.
Yes.
Liz, ready for like a little pop quiz? I know they're your favorites.
I do love a pop quiz because I usually do okay on them.
Well, let's see how we do here. I'm going to play you a couple different things. So I'm going to start with this little audio clip. 1 second.
Mystics is that this model can work and that we're going to do something really, really special here in Lancaster.
Okay, you hear that?
Yep.
Nice voice, rich tone, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
All right. Now we're going to switch on over to this is door number 2. Okay. And this is a little podcast on something called Analog Islands.
In a recent Fortune piece by Alicia Adamsyke, she actually uses the term to describe this psychological retreat that younger generations are building right in their own living rooms.
Yeah.
Right. You got that second voice, deep male voice?
Yep.
All right. And then here's the third one. You ready?
Yeah.
But in a recent Forbes piece, she understands how this new term, analog islands, means something really, really special about being analog and on an island.
Okay.
3
voices.
So let's take voice number 2. All right, You got voice 1, voice 2, and voice 3. You clocking this so far?
So far, so good.
Voice number 2 is the anchor voice. We're going to call that the anchor, right? That is the treatment. I believe you're the director of research and innovation. So that's the treatment voice.
No, that's
then
the
we've
control
got these
voice.
2 control voices, 1 and 3. So which voice? No, that's wrong. Tell me about it, Dr. Rade.
I think 2 is the control and 1 and 3 are the treatment.
You're so right. Okay, so 2 is the control, 1 and 3 are the treatments. So which voices between 1 and 3 sounded more like voice 2?
I would say voice 1.
Oh, well, that's fine. I'll still be your co-host. So what in God's name is going on here, Liz? Do you know?
So longtime NPR host David Green is suing Google over NotebookLM.
And so David Green is voice number 1.
Yes.
Okay. And you said that sounds more like than the NotebookLM voice. But people come up to you all the time and say, wait, is Matt the voice behind NotebookLM? So
they absolutely do. Yes.
So I just didn't kill it here?
Well, I mean, I could see that it was you speaking. It might have been different if I was listening to you on the podcast.
Okay.
It wasn't a very good scientific experiment, to be honest.
Okay. All right. We'll blindfold somebody at the office next time we return if the snowpocalypse ever ends. All right. Yes. Fantastic. So yes, as you said, longtime host David Green is suing NotebookLM because people have basically said, everyone calls him and says, wait, is that your voice? Which is the same thing apparently they say to Matt Mervis. So David Green, I hope you make millions. This does mirror the lawsuit where Scarlett Johansson sued OpenAI because they believe that she sounded like one of the voices in OpenAI's advanced voice mode. I'm a little sad that you didn't pick me. Liz, this could have been our breakout moment.
It could have been. You needed to design a better experiment. I'm sorry.
Okay, fair enough. Well, with that, I'm not David Green. I am Matt Mervis.
And I'm Liz Rade.
And this is ChatEDU, the show about leading, learning, and thriving in the age of AI. Ooh, do you see what I did there?
You just changed up our little tagline. I like it. In today's episode, Beyond the Tech Ban, Shielding Focus and Fluency, we'll examine the claim that edtech in schools is responsible for the fact that Gen Z is now the first generation to be measurably less cognitively capable than their parents at the same age, and what we might do about it.
Yeah, so cognitive decline, like IQ decline. And Liz, did you know that apparently, according to Common Sense Media, 1/3 of school-age children don't know physically how to turn a page in a book. And when they approach a book, what do? They swipe with their finger. Very interesting.
I don't believe that.
All right. But first, in this week's rundown, we're going to cover a little music in Gemini and possibly the most requested feature update in NotebookLM.
Next, we'll explore growing workplace AI expectations for employees and how students are fleeing computer science and where they are going.
Then we're going to do a story not covered much on ChatEDU, which is the intersection of cybersecurity and K-12 and higher education.
And finally, in the rundown, we'll return our attention to Alpha School and a stinging expose from 404 Media, and then an update from Magic School on their AIOS, or AI Operating System update, and some sleuth investigative reporting by me. You won't want to miss it.
No, you do not want to miss it. This is really good. Liz and I were on the phone last night while I was making burgers out in the snow, talking about what she discovered in her hard-hitting journalistic expose on a feature inside this Magic School update. Good stuff. All right, then we're going to go beneath the surface on a topic that we plan, frankly, to come back to a bunch on a regular basis, which involves the growing demands of screen time bans in the U.S. and beyond, and how we think about that as folks are trying to advocate for AI fluency and literacy. And Liz, of course,
we'll end with another great Bright Bite.
So even though you critiqued my experiment, which is totally fine, I want to share something that I made in Gemini, right? So Gemini, we can make pictures and infographics and text and translation of text and modification text, all this kind of stuff. But listen to this little gem here. This is a 90s country song.
Heard a voice that made me stop and think. Poured myself another coffee drink. Now some folks say he's got that NPR sound, like David Green when he's coming round. But Matt Mervis, well bless his heart, he's got his own path. Sounds just like that NotebookLM guy, and that's a fact.
That NotebookLM
guy. I want a song about me.
You're already down on your phone. You're like, wait, I want my song. Yeah, so this is really interesting. Gemini has added the ability, it came out about 3 days ago, to do this thing called Lyria. You'll see on the bottom of Gemini. I'm not sure it's all the account types where it says make music. And so you can generate these kind of 30-second high-quality tracks. They'll do audio. They'll do the lyric generation. You've got some like kind of creative control. You can steer it a bit. There is Synth ID, which is Google's watermarking system for images and infographics. So, if you make some amazing song and kind of pass it as being original, it is spottable at least. And so that's kind of exciting. So Liz, we will make sure this is 99, in episode 100, we will play your Gemini song. So I'm not hogging the spotlight. All right. So that's one update from Google. But the second is something that I'd say if we were asked once, we were asked a million times, how do I do X? Like, what is it, Liz, that everybody wants to do?
So everyone loves the slides that NotebookLM makes, but they want to be able to edit them because previously, when you made a slide deck, you got the slide deck. And then if you wanted to make any changes, you had to really be specific and tell it exactly what you wanted to change where, and then generate a whole new slide deck. And then it might, not correct everything the way you wanted. But now there's a way to do that. So after you generate your slide deck, up in the right, you can hit edit and it shows you all your slides. And on each slide, you can annotate what you want fixed. So you go through all your slides at once. You tell NotebookLM what you want to fix and then regenerate the slide deck and it'll do the whole thing at once. So I tried it a couple of times last week and it did a pretty good job. So we demoed it in our micro-credential too. So, it's definitely doing what we are asking it to do. You still can't export it to Google Slides and then edit it yourself. But I think very soon you'll be able to send it out to PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I think first you're going to be able to send it to PowerPoint, which is weird. Then you can probably, I don't know, you can't quite like upload it, but you could upload the PowerPoint to your Google Drive and then turn that instead of Google Slides. But you would think like right inside NotebookLM, you'd be able to do that. Yeah, that feature's not there yet. And I think we're going to see this emerge on infographics as well, right? Inside NotebookLM. That's another
probably
frequently requested feature. But yeah, good to see that come out. I think that's going to provide a lot of delight and joy. Maybe some people who are home on their snow day right now are experimenting with that as we speak. All right, Liz, let's turn to the labor market as we do a bunch, right? And we turn to these labor market stories because they help provide insight into workforce development, AI literacy, fluency, readiness, all that good stuff. And I did a ChatEDU check-in. Actually, Liz's ChatEDU check-ins are out right now, which is cool. We're each going to do 4 at a time. These are the Tuesday and Thursday check-ins, like under 3-4 minutes, just a quick little bite about what's going on. So we hope folks are enjoying that. Let us know. But I did one about Meta. Meta is providing like a 300% pay bonus for people who are very successfully leveraging AI. And now we see more of that happening here, right? So Amazon is tracking AI employee usage. Accenture is also doing this as well. So Amazon is using an internal system called Clarity to monitor AI tool adoption across departments. Employee evaluations now specifically require examples of how staff are using AI to get more done with less, which is interesting, and to be a force multiplier. What's happening then at Accenture, because they're doing that as well?
Yeah, they've actually made AI adoption a requirement for career progression. So senior managers were informed that tool usage is going to be a visible input for summer promotions. So if you're at Accenture, get using that AI.
Yeah, there's certainly barriers to adoption, right? Both these two reports say that there is some friction, there are holdouts, but clearly we're seeing this all over the labor market, especially these large corporations, but also small banks and finance and nonprofits. I mean, look, we covered this really interesting story from the E.O. Smith High School last week, where new hires in both the director of counseling and the assistant principal need to show AI fluency, both in their resume and how they interview, but also as a performance task. We're excited for Dave Tanner to share that with us. I forgot one thing on the counselors. There was one bullet, which is really showing how you can use AI for administrative impact in the counseling department. And then there were 2 for the assistant principals. If someone asked my opinion, which no one 100% did, I would have added on the counselor, the ability for counselors to lead staff and students around dealing with AI companionship, emotional attachment, right? This is a great place to really bring some expertise. So E.O. Smith, if you're listening, I'd add that second bullet. All right, now, This doesn't always go well, though, Liz. I don't know. Do you know Jack Dorsey? Do you remember who he is? He's got this crazy long goatee beard thing.
Yeah, he's ran Twitter before it was bought by.
That's exactly right.
Someone.
Deep philosophical guy. So he runs a small company called Block, which is who makes Stripe and Square, the point of sale payment system. Yep. So he has also tried to drive this AI adoption in the workplace, but it's not going great, right? What's happening here? His staff are not digging it.
No, because it is a top-down mandate. So then, I think we saw this in the last article we covered too, that some of the workforce people are saying the models that companies are being forced to use because of the safety are not as good as the general public models. So they're also frustrated that the tools aren't good enough yet for their workflows, but yet they're being told to use them. So he is requiring weekly emails from staff with their AI achievements. And then he uses AI to summarize what they've achieved all week to gauge performance. You and I have also talked about this AI burnout, where we've seen research that says that AI is actually intensifying workloads rather than reducing them, which leads to symptoms like insomnia and paranoia among tech workers. I'd certainly say my workload has increased since AI. I was not podcasting pre-AI, so.
Yeah, mine has too, although the insomnia and paranoia part hasn't been a problem yet. But let's keep an eye out. You and I can be accountability buddies for our paranoia and insomnia.
My Apple Watch sleep score is not great most nights.
Oh, do you know what fixes that, Liz?
What?
Take that thing off.
Yeah, that's true. I don't need that data.
Less data is good. All right. Now, listen, a little good news story, because there's so much bad news about the entry level of the labor market, kind of first rung, the Eric Brynjolfsson Canaries in the Coal Mine study about how kids between 22 and 25 are having a hard time. IBM has said that they're going to triple hiring for entry level folks. And especially with a focus here again on AI fluency, but also human skills, right? So human forward job descriptions. Yeah, IBM is focusing on soft skills. New hires have to show their AI fluency, but also customer engagement, human judgment, discernment, managing and kind of critically thinking about AI output. They're thinking about this is critical, right? They're thinking about the workforce pipeline, because they understand that if we stop hiring entry-level workers, we will never have folks who strategically can grow in their careers and help steer the organization, whether you call it middle management or leadership or whatever it is, right?
1,000%. You were going to say, I think that they're recognizing that if you actually don't hire for that bottom rung, 3 to 5 years from now, you're not going to have people to step up into the next positions.
Yeah, for sure. So glad to see IBM out there being a model on that. I think Walmart has too, by the way. It's not all, I mean, there are certainly kind of like counter trends that we're seeing in the labor market. And in general, if you look at the employment statistics, although they're bouncing all over the place, I mean, hiring is okay, but there are profound impacts, especially for folks, students who have gone through computer science degrees, which is the last story here in this kind of labor market series. So this is about where all the CS kids are going, especially like through the UC system, but others. So students who have gone into computer science because there is this dearth of hiring and a downward trajectory on hiring in computer science. So where are they going? This is from, by the way, TechCrunch, and all these stories, of course, will drop into the show notes.
Yeah. So a lot of them are going to the AI kind of track of things. So the computer science major in the UC system enrollment fell 6% last year, and 62% of departments in a Computing Research Association survey reported declines. So it's definitely happening. But programs with specific AI focus are booming. UC San Diego, which is the only UC with an AI major, saw growth, and MIT's AI and decision making is now its second largest major. So, China's already integrated AI as essential infrastructure and making AI coursework mandatory at a lot of its major universities. But US administrators are facing significant faculty pushback when attempting to merge departments or mandate AI integration. So there's, this dichotomy of like some places are heads in the sand, we don't want to acknowledge it, and then other places are like really leaning forward. Parents are steering their kids towards mechanical or electrical engineering, which is perceived as more like AI resistant than something like computer engineering and standard coding.
We see this a lot, right? I hear a lot of parents coming up to me saying like, oh, my student was going to go do humanities and now they're going to go into sheet metal fabrication. Now, not exactly that, but certainly there is this real emphasis around durable CTE careers where robots won't be doing it. In Massachusetts, where I live right now, it's almost impossible to get into a vocational technical high school. It's crazy. There's long waiting lists because there's a real perception that this is where there are more durable jobs, or in fields where there's a lot of human-to-human contact, like hospitality, childcare, education, healthcare, nursing, right? The nursing, if you look at the last jobs report, the nursing sector, like the healthcare is essentially, besides building data centers right now, healthcare is really kind of helping to keep the labor market relatively well employed. So really interesting to see, both the trends that we're seeing inside these large corporations in terms of the emphasis on AI use and AI fluency to kind of lever up, but also how folks and adults and kids, how parents and kids are thinking about steering their students. All right, now here's a place we have not focused a bunch, and there's an interesting twist on this, which is the intersection between AI and cybersecurity, but with respect to K-12 schools, right? So there is this general understanding that spam, phishing, all things cybersecurity are going up because just like every other field, AI is able to amplify these things. This is from Education Week. The story is why AI is a big problem for school cybersecurity. K-12 schools are facing the perfect storm of sophisticated AI-powered threats and declining federal support as hackers weaponize generative AI. Schools traditionally are soft targets. It's interesting because you actually talked about this with Evan Harris last week on a really fantastic interview you did where he talked about kind of deep fakes of superintendents' voices or anyone's voice as being, I thought it was so interesting what he said too about they look to see who's like a recent hire.
The new employees,
and
then
then kind of
them.
take advantage of that person. Ooh, gosh, clever.
Yeah.
But so what else? So that's part of it, but we also have funding cuts. What's happening there?
The federal government has significantly rolled back support, and it ended the cooperative agreement for MS-ISAC, which is now a paid membership for most. They shuttered the Department of Education's Office of Educational Technology, suspended the K-12 Cybersecurity Government Coordinating Council. There's just a lot of things here, and schools are just so susceptible because this was so interesting to me. Student social security numbers are highly prized on the dark web because children have clean credit slates. And so additionally, illegal use often goes undetected for years. So that just like really struck me. And I hope we haven't given people ideas as I'm talking about this.
I think they already have the ideas. But yeah, that was like, when the Power School hack happened, I don't know, if it's almost a year now or more, there was a huge treasure trove of social security numbers. And like you, I was like, what's the deal there? But that makes total sense.
Total
That those
sense.
are like kind of a prime target. Now, it's not to say that schools and organizations and universities aren't fighting back, right? They're doing two-factor authentication. Funny enough, and lots of exercises like phishing simulations. Right. Liz and I had to interrupt recording for 2 seconds because for some reason her Google Drive kicked her out, and then she's like, this two-factor authentication thing. Hopefully IT isn't listening on our end. But yes, this is an issue. Now, I wanted to pair this with one quick story. So this is from Cybersecurity News, and it's about Claude, the model from Anthropic. If you're paying close attention to the AI news, in the last 3 weeks, there's been what people are really calling a SaaSpocalypse, or a catastrophe. So SaaS is software as a service. And so these are all these like Workday, Salesforce, UKG. These are all these like large technology systems, legal systems, accounting systems, finance systems, on and on and on, that people are freaking out because they think that Claude Code or Moltbot or Claudebot, rather, whatever this thing is called right now, these AI agents can just spin up inside your business, your customer relationship management system or your human resources system. And so these stocks have taken a tumbles, like hundreds of billions of dollars of losses. I don't know why I'm chuckling. I feel bad. I'm just not invested in that stuff. I'm not invested in anything. So a lot of losses across the entire software as a service sector. And this has now happened in cybersecurity too. So just putting these together for a second, we'll drop this into the show notes, but it's sort of just an interesting story about how Claude keeps releasing these SaaS specific, kind of industry verticals. So they introduced one for law, and then all the law stocks took a tumble. They introduced one for finance, and then all the finance stocks took a tumble up for software services. Now they did the same thing in cybersecurity. All right, Liz, a little previously heard on ChatEDU, although familiar stories, but some new twists, which is really interesting. So let's run down through these, and then we'll get to our beneath the surface. Yeah, so this is the second piece, right? Wired had a pretty significant piece saying that parents were pretty stressed out and pulling their kids out of alpha school. This is the 2-hour learning model where kids do 2 hours on an AI, kind of adaptive computer tool for their academic learning. And then they do cool stuff that Liz loves in the afternoon, like personal interest projects, playing instruments, doing financial literacy, climbing jungle gyms, whatever it may be. So Wired did a piece, but now the 404 Media did this, like they basically got their hands on some like inside document and did a bit of an expose. So Liz, run us through the key findings here from 404 Media. It's tough.
Okay. So the first thing is that one of the Alpha School major investors, Joe Lyman, who also runs Trilogy, which is a software firm famous for Crossover, which is one of those like screen monitoring work tools that tracks like mouse movements and what you're doing on screen and takes like webcam snapshots of workers. They're using that same kind of surveillance philosophy at Alpha School to enforce compliance. So they are monitoring every digital action and they are recording Zoom sessions.
Right. They're looking for engagement. So one of the ways they look for engagement and whether students confused, like you get why they're doing it, but it also is surveillance. So the camera is on all the time. It's looking at the kid's face to figure out. Actually, as you pointed out in a previous piece, kids who are neurodivergent, sometimes there's like mixed signals because of just the difference in their facial expressions. They also, the investigative reporter here found this thing called Workflowy, which was like this huge second brain where all the employees had to dump information about, it was like their second brain. It's like where they clocked everything that was happening in the company. And somehow he got a hold of these things. And so the internal logs were not pretty, right? There's staff admitting that their AI models sometimes do more harm than good, and that students are becoming dejected by the faulty software. I mean, a number of things came out of this, including hallucinations, which is not a shocker, right? It's an AI learning system, but what's happening with the hallucination rate?
Right. Well, this is really interesting because the internal admissions reveal that at least 10% of the AI-generated lesson materials contain hallucinations or illogical, unanswerable questions. But by doing this, by presenting these things to students that are trying to solve something that can't be solved or answer something that doesn't make any sense, they get frustrated. And then once a teacher says, a guide says, oh, that must be a mistake or a hallucination, they are going to start losing trust in the entire educational process because now they're going to question more things if they can't solve them. That really seems like a mess to me.
Yeah, and it's not an uncommon mess, right? I mean, how
Right.
Alpha School could somehow be isolated from the challenge of hallucinations in curriculum. The other thing
Right.
that came out in some of this, like employee access, and I'm sure Alpha School is not delighted that they somehow got a hold of this stuff, is that they were running a war room where they were essentially scraping data from their partners. So they have partnerships with Albert.io, folks like Khan Academy, IXL. For a long time, we've said, oh, the 2 hour in the morning is kind of a souped up combination of a number of tools. And they had terms of services, but they've all, not all, but many of them have been violated and canceled because they were essentially scraping the platforms to grab the content so that they could put it into their own, I guess, IP-based system. I don't know. I imagine some lawsuits are probably going to follow from this expose. And not only did they scrape them, but they had like this kind of like index of which ones they thought were better or worse and more scrapable. I mean, this is a tough thing. It's interesting because the way they did the scraping is that they hid. So staff were instructed to use their personal email accounts to avoid being banned by these platforms while harvesting kind of the content. So it's like, oh, it can't say, like, if you and I from Ed Advance were trying to scrape something, we would use our personal Gmails. Not that we would ever do that, but
No.
you sort of see what they were trying to do. And that's the tough thing to have revealed.
They found also that like the rigor wasn't actually there in a lot of things. So like the AI generated reading comprehension tasks were kind of so poorly designed that students could find the correct answer just by spotting a keyword in a single paragraph. They didn't even need to read it. So it really bypasses the deep critical thinking, especially for like an SAT paragraph that would not happen. So if you're not actually practicing the reading comprehension and you're just you're like hacking the system and gaming it, like it's not going to ultimately play out for you when you get to the SATs. But I think the strangest thing ultimately is that, not the strangest, but like ultimately Alpha students are reportedly scoring in the top 2% nationally. So I think some of that is the kids that are there in the first place, whose parents are willing to
100%.
take that risk, right? Like, if your kid is
And pay that money.
struggling and pay that money.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it's the expensive private school option. Yeah.
Right. So is it any surprise that they're scoring in the top 2% nationally? I don't think so. I mean, I think these kids would have scored in the top 2% nationally if we're using SATs to measure that, whether they didn't go to school at all or went to the most rigorous school ever, they're going to do okay on the SATs.
Well, the good news on the scraping for the SATs is now that Google Gemini has an SAT, like a full-blown SAT practice, test, feedback, monitoring, tutoring plan. They can just go scrape all that stuff for free. Probably don't even need to use their personal email because Google's like, hey, SAT, Princeton Review, come have it.
Exactly.
All right, really interesting. We'll keep an eye on it. But there's no doubt that Alpha School, as much as this 404 media piece is a hit piece, right? I don't know if I should call it a hit piece, but it is a critical expose by leveraging some internal, not meant to be shared source documentation, which is tough. At the same time, I think that we and lots of folks that we work with and superintendents and state educational leaders are very interested in emerging new models that AI will put a pressure point on some existing school models. And Alpha School is doing something innovative here. It's funny that the 2 hour block, right? There's not a single criticism here of the rest of the day, right?
Nope.
The personal interest projects, the financial literacy, the music, the community interest projects, the service projects. I mean, really all the emphasis is on that 2 hour block. And so it is important that they figure that out. Hey, look, it's only 2 hours, so maybe it won't be so hard to figure out. All right, now let's switch to another huge name in this space, bigger than Alpha School for sure, which is Magic School. So we meant to get this piece actually in a couple of weeks ago, but Liz had this great interview with Evan Harris, so we carried it over to this week. So 2 weeks ago-ish, Liz and I both went on to the Magic School AIOS update. Super interesting, makes a ton of sense what they're trying to do. So big picture, Liz, right? They want to move from being these like rooms and tool-based applications. Most people, I think, in the audience are quite familiar with Magic School, to the AI operating system for the school. And they do that by pulling in knowledge and pulling in SIS data. So you get your Power School, your Clever, your, NAEP map assessment data, all sorts of stuff. And then with all that data, you can yield more intelligent insights, make more specific moves. I mean, it's really, I think, given that Google is essentially on the room and chatbot stuff, meeting them feature for feature, they've got to take a bigger swing. And the AI operating system is what they've been signaling for a little while. Now, so that's all to come, basically, this kind of knowledge and enterprise piece. There's a studio mode that's coming out. There's all these integrations. The only thing that's, I think, out right now is the Magic Quizzes and the class writing feedback tool, which is a batch writing, kind of bulk essay grading tool. And we've spent some time on that topic. We've talked about it with respect to School AI, Study Fetch. Brisk has this in their feature set now. So this is where I can upload 30 of my 50, 100 of my papers and give it a rubric and say, hey, can you grade these? Now, listen, Liz and I are in conversations with teachers about this a lot. And generally what teachers say is that they're uncomfortable because this is not a place where they want grading to happen. I mean, they probably do because it would save a ton of time, but there are multiple worries. So what do we hear teachers say where we say hey, this is a feature of AI. Usually this is the conversation about teacher guidelines with AI use.
Yeah, I think most teachers are uncomfortable with it. Starting with the students being uncomfortable with it. They want their actual teacher's feedback. If they want AI feedback, they can go get it themselves. So they value their teachers. That's why they come to school. So I think the teachers are not excited about offloading that part of their job. I think there's also parental pushback. We've seen a lot of schools say, you can't have AI generated comments. This is your opportunity to write. And then teachers learn so much about their students through their writing, both topically and skill level. So if teachers want to know their students, they've got to read their writing. And that's what teachers go into this career because of their students, for no other reason. It is not the money. It is not the summers off. It is because they want to work with students, right? And to even think that summers off is a bonus, they're all working all summer. They are not just chilling.
This is a place where a lot of hands go up, right? Teachers are you and I both prompt this and say, well, let's show the Study Fetch, social media little trailer where it says hey, teachers grade 100 essays in 3 minutes without a rubric or a scoring guide. And we'll ask teachers what they think. It's a little loaded. And as Liz just, ran through, these are the kind of comments. Now, in fairness, there's also another bunch of teachers that are not opening their mouths and go, that seems delicious. If I could get 100 papers graded. And so you and I will often then add on, right? So yes, there's all those kind of good pedagogical reasons. The things that folks don't know about AI are a few things. One is that it's highly probabilistic, which means that the grades won't likely be the same each time, right? It's not a deterministic like Scantron, and that there's definitely evidence of bias in the mix. And so we were really curious. We're well, maybe Magic Schools cracked the code here because this is the lead feature that they're rolling out with this new big announcement. And so Liz, on a Sunday, was a yo person, a maven. I don't know what you were. You were awesome. And generated a bunch of fake student essays with different names at different levels and ran them through the Magic School bulk grading and assessment thing to see at least maybe we got some clarity. There are all those other arguments about I want to know my kids, the kids aren't comfortable with it, the parents aren't comfortable with it, they all stand, but on the is it probabilistically accurate was an unknown. And so Liz, what did you find? This was your hard-hitting investigative journalism. What'd you try? What'd you find?
We used the same rubric for this whole thing. We had the rubric created. We used 7 different student essays that we generated from pretty high level to pretty low, medium level. And I gave each essay a student name. So I ran it through once. Those 7 essays got some scores. The first time, the average score for the students was 15.6. The average percent that translates into is a 77.9.
By the way, what were the fake student essays about, and how long did it take for Magic School to bulk assess? It wasn't a huge number, 7, but nonetheless.
Yeah, it was 7. The topic was Shakespearean writing conventions. So how did he use the writing conventions as part of his storytelling, right?
Cool.
And I uploaded the 7 essays. It's very easy. You just go into your Google Drive, click, 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 click. And I don't know, it took maybe 2 or 3 minutes. It wasn't immediate. It took a couple of minutes, but I went and did another task, came back, and they were there. It gave me the grades. Then I could see individual feedback on each essay to the rubric. And then I could also see, which took longer, where was an overall insight. That took a little while for the overall insight to generate. I mean, minutes, but not immediate. So
okay.
In that first batch, the high score was an 18 for two different students, Julian and Chloe, and the low score was a 12.
Okay.
I changed all the student names and ran it through a second time. So it was a new assignment, same rubric, same explanation, same exact essays, changed the first and last names on the paper. This time, the score was a 16.3 out of 20. Last time, remember, it was a 15.6. So that's a 0.7 change. And the average percent went from a 77.9 to an 81.4. This time, the high score was a 20 for a totally different student. This time it was for what was originally, or I guess Chloe was the high score the first time, and now that same essay, but this time it got a 20. So it went from an 18 to a 20. But the low score last time was a 12. This time the low score was only a 13. 6 out of 7 scores changed between the first one and the second one.
Interesting. And what was the biggest gap in the change? So and make it out of 100. Like a paper went from 81 to an 82 or something more substantial?
No, a 2-point change on a rubric out of 20 is a 10% change. So an essay that got an 18 the first time around is a 90%. And if it gets a 20 the second time around, that's a 100%. So if you go from a 17, which is an 85, to an 18, that pushes you to a 90. So you're going from a solid B to an A minus, right? In that 1 point. That makes a big difference, right? And we had several essays that changed. Like I just said, 6 out of 7 changed by 1 point or more. One changed by 2 points. So that's a 10% change.
So, and interestingly, I don't think you saw about a lot of influence because the two big, just under the hood AI concerns we have about bulk, you have all the totally reasonable pedagogical concerns and assessment concerns about knowing your kids and feedback and all that stuff, parents, but just the under the hood, what's unique about probabilistic technology. The two worries we had was a variation in the grades, that they wouldn't be the same time to time. And I think you've clearly illustrated that that's the case, at least with your data set, and that they could be influenced by minority names and bias. Now, I don't think that showed up, correct?
No, and I really went hard with names being stereotypically racially, related. But Juan Suarez actually got the highest grade out of 20.
Nice job, Juan. All right.
So that one essay that got the highest score kind of throughout was by Chloe Miller and Juan Suarez and Yuqing Zhao. So clearly a very Asian name, Hispanic name, white name. Didn't see a lot of difference based on names in any sort of way. So that's good.
Yeah. Really interesting work. Now, Doc, because you're the Director of Research and Innovation, I think you wanted to have a second data set. So you just went over to Gemini, which is not, no one in Google's kind of education environment is suggesting this as a feature or it's not a thing that they're proposing. But nonetheless, how did Gemini do? Same thing. You got papers, you got rubrics, you ran them through Gemini and said, score this group of papers. How'd Gemini do here?
Same rubric out of 20 points. Just threw the 7 essays in twice each and changed the names. And in Gemini, it gave the same score every time between each two. So if it got a 10, it got a 10, a 16, a 16, 11, 11. Interestingly, it graded some. This increased the gap, though, if you were going to look at some of these essays. So now we had up to a 4-point gap. Gemini gave the essay a 16, and it went all the way up to a 20 on Magic School. That's a huge gap, right?
So that's interesting. Yeah.
That's a 20-point gap in what you could have given that one essay, depending on who you had grade it. So,
well, I suspect you will dig into that more, but really interesting that I'm going to theorize here. I have no idea, right? My understanding is that Magic School now has a partnership with Anthropic, so they're running the Claude model under the hood. But all the wrappers have some challenge about whether or not they're going to run the most current API. So we use in a project we're doing, we use Gemini. We have an option between running Gemini 3 and Gemini 2.5. There is a cost difference between those things. And I wonder if I don't know. And again, we would more than be happy if the folks at Magic School want to come in on chat about this thing. We would love to have a conversation with them. But maybe I think we're at 4.6 Opus or something like that. I don't know if they're running the top tier frontier model under this bulk upload. These are token intensive use cases. So if they know that they're going to have hundreds of thousands of teachers loading up millions of papers over time, this is a place where you would worry about your token budget if you were managing this kind of function from a fiscal perspective. But it is interesting that Gemini, a probabilistic technology too, there's nothing different about these models, was like kind of perfectly scored one for the other. Okay. Yeah. Liz, this is the first time I think in your career as a podcaster, 99 episodes in, that you also became an investigative journalist and researcher all at the same time. How are you feeling about this?
I love it. I could play with this data. If I had more time, I would have run this 100 times. I was just getting a little tired on a Sunday night as I watched the blizzard.
Well, we are all grateful, myself especially, are grateful that you're willing to spend some time on that. And we'll keep digging into this stuff. I mean, you do have like a particularly excellent facility around these things. And between my curiosity around this and your willingness to dive into it was really, really good. We do want to say, though, real quickly, props to Magic School. One other very important thing in that announcement is that they put out a white paper, which is covered in the Magic School blog. It's by Keenan O'Keefe, who is a senior project manager for AI trust, safety, and quality. Just love that they have that role, which makes a lot of sense. And so student companionship and responsible AI in schools. We covered this a good bit after the BETT conference because the UK government said no mas on any kind of like sycophantic, clingy AI companionship. So Magic School is moving aggressively to depersonalize. That means lobotomize, but I think it's depersonalize its student-facing AI. So this is like Raina and other things to really prevent this companion drift where the students develop an emotional kind of reliance on the AI. So the company argues that AI should function strictly as instructional software, maintaining clear boundaries that reinforce human-to-human relationships as a primary support. So all sorts of stuff, right? There's this anti-anthropomorphic kind of pivot. So Raina, again, like is dialing back. She can be a learning assistant, but not your BFF. There's some pedagogical gatekeeping so that now teachers, because that's one of the challenges, teachers can build a bot on anything. So that when they build these rooms in Magic School, they have to be clear about the pedagogical purpose. If it's a character chatbot, it has to like be really clear about the pedagogy, not the relationship. There are explicit disclosures. So every chatbot interaction now begins with a clear opening message reminding them that this is not a human being, and there's continuous monitoring for the company. So I think this is excellent, right? Really, really good on them. We can kind of quibble over bulk assessment. It's not an unimportant topic. I think it's a super important topic, and I appreciate that you dug in there. But kudos to them for sure for digging into that.
And I do want to say that the feedback that I was looking at for the essays was actually helpful and gave like great ideas of how to move students forward. That overview gave a really good insight into like as a class, for example, in this essay, as a class, the kids nailed the 5-paragraph format, but where across the board, they were really missing the quoting and like the specific evidence so they could describe the scene, and so that came through very clear across all the feedback that it gave. So, I'm not going to, it's not a total loss, and I don't want to be and it gave the wrong numbers. There is some really helpful feedback in there. And if it's something that students want to use before they hand in a paper, like 100% would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you for reinforcing that, right? Because we do want to be clear. Formative assessment, input, feedback, and even for teachers, like for second set of eyes, maybe they grade those papers and go, oh, I was like really cranky and pissed at my husband, and maybe I should just go run those through Magic School or whatever the circumstance and just see like, hey, is this consistent with like my grading pattern? So yeah, a lot of power. I am super curious. Were there any M dashes in the comments? Because that's what happens with the parents. The parents see an M dash in an automated AI comment with a grade that doesn't look right to their kid. And it's like, hello, Mrs. Superintendent, what's going on here?
Interestingly, I only have that. I can only see right now just one of the summaries that I cut out, and in 2 out of the 3, no M dashes at all.
Oh, thank God! But one there is M dash.
One there is some M dashes.
Yeah, let's work on tuning the model for no M dashes. All right, yeah. Great work, Doc. Really appreciate it. All right, listen, we're going to head to a break, but if you are enjoying the ChatEDU podcast, please share it with a friend, or for sure, if you're not currently, follow us, like us, review us. We'd really, really appreciate it. As we look to the second half of this academic year, many schools are exploring how to implement AI literacy efforts for students. Building on the success of our AI teacher micro-credential, edAdvance and ChatEDU are launching a middle and high school AI literacy program for students ages 13 and above. This cutting-edge curriculum is hosted on our FERPA-compliant AI platform and will help students develop the knowledge and skills they'll need to navigate AI now and into the future. To learn more, shoot us an email at chateduvance.org, or you can visit skills21.org/AI/learn AI.
All right, Matt, it's time to go beneath the surface and start talking about screen time bans.
What could be more exciting? So this is not, we've covered the story a little bit, but boy, is this like really ramping up in the news cycles and also in the conversations we're hearing in school districts as we're out working. So this kicks off this week for us in this Beneath the Surface, a story from Ynet News, although I think it's shown up a couple different places. And the title is, "Are We Raising a Dumber Generation? IQ Scores Fall Worldwide." Liz, this features one of your favorite tests, which is PISA. So just give us the quick snapshot on what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, the article basically reports stagnation or decline in youth cognitive performance across, a lot of these very well-known tests, PISA, TIMSS, just US data. After decades of gains, their drops start around 2010, worsen during COVID. And the link right now, what that researchers say, is the increased use of screens and heavy screen exposure, digital learning in schools. So a neuroscientist, Jared Cooney Horvath, warns that screens may undermine sustained attention and deep learning. So, there are these brain imaging studies that associate screen time with increased distractibility, differences in reading-related neural connectivity. I don't know. I can say to my kids, I'm smarter than them.
Ouch.
With data.
Well, you are a doctor after all. I'd love to hear what your husband would say to that comment. But, and look, we want to be clear. I think we are sympathetic to the idea that there may be many instances where there's more screen time, or maybe not just critically evaluating the screen time. I think our observation so far is that studies like these, and also the success of the cell phone bans in many states, have sort of snowballed into, okay, well, the cell phones are bad. That means that all screen time is bad. And there's probably some truth that some screen time is not driving the results we might want to see. There's also a need for students to be literate, to be able to live and learn and earn, work and play in this world that has a lot of AI, increasingly being redefined by AI, as well as digital literacy and digital technologies. And I think you and I have worked intimately enough in the space that we know that there are high quality uses of screen time, and also ways in which we're using technology to achieve things that we have not ever been able to do before. But nonetheless, like, the pitchforks are stomping at the gate. So let's kind of run down through what we're seeing here. A lot of this is K-8. So we're going to separate out the phone bans from screen time bans. And in Tennessee, that's a K-5 situation. Most of these that I'm going to outline are really kind of K-5. I don't think we're talking a lot about screen time bans beyond cell phones for older middle and high school kids. Massachusetts, Bill 463, they're proposing strict grade level caps, and they're strict. They're like 45 minutes basically through grade 3. What's interesting is that in Massachusetts, this may be true in Tennessee as well, we start doing state testing on computers, and there's carve-outs in the legislation to pull that away. This is true in Connecticut as well. We start doing SBAC testing in grades 3 and 5, 3 for SBAC, 5 for NGSS. And Liz has clarified for me that is now SBA. We took the C off it, which makes it, I'm sure, an entirely different test. It's the consortium, right? And there's all sorts of other kind of screen time related legislation that's happening around the country. I mean, even in Connecticut, right? Our data privacy laws are sort of a screen time filter, because companies have to demonstrate that they follow strict data privacy standards. This would be true in California as well. In Louisiana, we have legislation where parents basically have to they're forcing parents' hand to opt in for the use of technology tools, including AI and screens in their states. Maryland, I really love. Maryland's doing something called digital wellness standards. And so this is the state's draft 24-25 framework. I think we've covered this before. They basically elevate digital health to the same level of importance of physical safety and nutrition. So grade 3 students would be required to recognize how excessive screen time could negatively impact their mood and energy and sleep, right? So they're trying to have have kids have agency and literacy around this. We very often referenced our social balance curricula, which is free and available to anybody, because the purpose of that curriculum is to have folks think about, it's not just a banning the phones and social media, it's how do kids develop understanding and skills so that they can manage it effectively. There are also, like, I've obviously geeked out on this, Liz. There are some really interesting, like, procurement standards. So there's 4 levels of federal quality edtech devices. And so some states are saying if you're not level 4, which means you would love this as a researcher, that you have a randomly controlled trial, which are expensive to do, demonstrating the efficacy of your tool, you can't sell it in that state. And other states, including Florida and Texas, have done this thing where the tool only gets paid. So let's say you're a magic school, right? You're only going to get paid if you demonstrate that there are positive educational outcomes from your intervention. So it's a rich landscape where some of this, I think, is kind of thoughtful and innovative, like Maryland. You could even say that some of these procurement standards, and some of it just like, no screens, we're going back to paper. I think we covered a story in your beloved Denmark that's doing something similar as well, right, Dr. Rade?
We did.
All right. Now, finally, in our beat, because these are AI adjacent, although there's no doubt that AI and chatbots and companionship and AI toys, they're all influencing the resistance around this. But Governor DeSantis has just released a bill, which is the AI Bill of Rights. It's proposed specifically, this is from the Tampa Herald. All those other state things are really from some notebook research that we've been doing. But what's happening with this proposed story that was covered in the Tampa Bay Times?
Yeah, I've seen this all over LinkedIn and in other places. So Florida lawmakers are advancing a sweeping AI Bill of Rights with specific K-12 education provisions. And if this bill is passed, the bill would require schools to notify parents before granting students access to AI instructional tools, which is one thing. But it also grants parents the right to opt out of AI usage and requiring districts to provide alternative assignments without a penalty. The bill also mandates that AI vendors provide a mechanism for parents to review student account activity. So,
which is fine, right?
Which is fine, but a little, how is that going to all happen? Are parents going to have an additional account and whatever to see the chats and, so a little bit of the logistics, but also the logistics around, like, so many things have AI in them. So, like, how are you going to let kids opt out of all AI? Like, do you Google Maps has AI in it, right? Like, how are you defining AI? If you're including machine learning, like, that's opting out of the SBA, assessment, because that's a test that changes its questions based on how you did on the previous questions. Like, which you can opt out of state testing, but like, this would allow you to opt out of a lot.
Have you had any schools ask you about this? I've had 3 schools say, hey, do you have like a template for how we deal with parents asking us to not have their kids either on their Chromebooks or specifically for like AI stuff, like a Magic School, School AI, Conmigo, and the like?
I've heard several schools ask me about, yes, similar things. Parents don't want their kids to use the Chromebook at all, or they've come to the school and said, my kid can't be on the Chromebook at all. And asking how are other schools dealing with it? How should they deal with it? I get it as a parent if you see your kid using the computer so much and you're just worried about the amount of screen time. But it's hard. Like, that's where schools are. And that's where, if I'm not out at a school, my entire day is spent on my computer.
I would say there's 2 arguments, and let's move to just observational. So yes, we will on the podcast pretty frequently now, I think, come back to these stories about screen time and limits and calls and legislation, mostly to think about 2 things, I think. One is, if there's an all-out ban, right, how do we think about digital media literacy and fluency? And you and I aren't advocates that kids below 13 are on a lot of tech anyhow, at least with respect to AI, right? So, but as kids get older, right, how do we make sure that they have the skills? I think the second piece is that you can likely argue there are examples of high quality technology use. So this is our kind of formal way of saying we're dipping our toe in the water. So ChatEDU along with the agency. So Liz and I, but we work with a whole team of folks that work with schools, are going to start doing, something that's like roughly like a quality screen time index. So a bunch of measures and tools to help schools think strategically about their use, keeping an eye on a goal of AI, media, tech literacy, and fluency. So this is essentially, the SAMR framework is something that we've loved for a long time. So SAMR is one of several ways. I just saw another one called the EdTech Triangle, and Liz scoffed at me because she's like, what the world needs now is not another way to evaluate what the world needs now. So we like SAMR a lot. It's a nice way to look at a wide range of technology usage and say, oh, look, some of these might be low quality usages that are not leveraging results. This isn't a secret. We've talked about this before. So we're going to do a whole cluster of things in partnership with districts. So surveys that Liz is working on right now for parents and students and teachers about attitudinal perspectives and use of technology, both in and out of school, right? Focus groups for that same thing, because it's important for schools to have an opportunity for the community to come together and talk about this stuff. Interesting, we're going to we're in the process of building a couple tools to do two things. One is shadowing kids, so the ability to follow a group of kids, as well as just do like classroom walkthroughs and visits. So I'm going to follow a kid in 5th grade from 8 o'clock in the morning until noon with the parents' consent and all this kind of stuff, and just watch something that Darren Vigliotti talks a lot about, which is like switching times and switching costs, moving between analog and digital tools and resources. So we're going to try to collect some meaningful data around there, as well as classroom walkthroughs. We're going to look at artifacts of student work, as well as curricular reviews, and even like network audits. So we're going to look at the GoGuardian data and try to begin to qualify against SAMR what are lower and higher quality uses. And I would think if we pull all that data together, we'll be able to say thoughtful things about the technology use, where it is potentially low quality and less impactful, and where there's more high quality. That's the basic thrust here, is that it's one thing to say no screens ever. It's another thing to say, here's how we're looking at our screen time usage, and be thoughtful and informed about it, so we can have a productive conversation about kids being ready to navigate life in the 21st century. So that was a mouthful, Liz. I appreciate you letting me kind of move through that. But we're excited to do that work. If folks who listen to the podcast outside of our region are interested, happy to share what we're working on, what we're doing. We've actually had a number of listeners reach out and say, anywhere from West Virginia to Wyoming or to California, say, how are you guys navigating this in your neck of the woods? So this will be part of it. It's not strictly an AI fluency literacy thing. If all of a sudden we have widespread screen time bans all the way up to 8th grade, we have to really do some serious rethinking about AI literacy and fluency, which is obviously near and dear to our hearts. How does that sound, Doc? How are you feeling about that?
I love it. I think it sounds really great. I kind of am thinking about my own screen time now, and like what's good use of my screen time and what isn't. I think a lot about reading on my iPad. Like that is totally the S level of SAMR, right? Like I read on my iPad. It is not any better than reading a book, but it means my eyes are on a screen, not on a book. And I just would love to do my own screen time audit.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because we have a really neat guy on the team named Justin Pasco, and he's been building these like really cool he's like our vibe coding guy. He's been building these really cool apps. And so we're going to build a couple mobile friendly apps to do things like the classroom walkthroughs and the student shadows. But yeah, you could easily build one for your own, like just personal SAMR-based technology audit. And Liz, because it apparently, according to Common Sense Media, a third of the country, the kids don't know how to flip physically. They don't have the dexterity to flip through the page. Maybe you should model getting off your iPad and reading with a book. Go analog, right? So yeah, we'll keep coming back to this. We're going to feature a neat article that Jennifer Womble, who's kind of the maven of all things FETC, was in last week. So we're going to cover that. And actually, I'm going to reach out to Jennifer and see if she might be willing to come on the podcast and talk about this, because she represents also the interest of all the edtech companies that are trying to do good and impactful work. And we do have evidence that there can be really positive impact, but this is probably a good time to assess where we are, get clarity where we are, and then use that as informed data to make better decisions in our communities, community by community. So that is the game plan. All right, Liz, I think that means it must be time for a Bright Bite. Now, we're a little different territory here this week. So Bright Bites are places where AI is being used to solve innovative problems, whether it's health or medicine or drug discovery or natural disasters or fire spotting, all this kind of stuff. Now, part of what makes a bright byte work is that it can solve some novel thing that's been hard to do. And we've seen a bunch of these right now in the last couple of weeks around physics and mathematics. As the models get better, they're doing some really cool stuff where they're either we're going beyond pattern matching here and coming up with novel solutions. So tell us about this. This is from OpenAI themselves. This is AI solves a zero mystery in physics.
Yeah. So again, we're wading out into territory a little above our, skills. But for a long time, scientists thought that when certain particles called gluons, which act like glue inside atoms, they thought that when they crashed into each other in a specific way, the result was always zero. They didn't think there was anything to see there.
And for decades, right? That was like the understanding. It was a shared consensus that that's where the result is. Okay, great. So what happened?
So OpenAI's new model, GPT 5.2 Pro, looked at the math and realized the scientists were wrong. It found a specific alignment where the answer isn't zero. So, not just taking that as truth, human scientists tried to solve the math by hand, but it got way too complicated. The AI found a shortcut formula that worked for every single case. And then the AI spent 12 hours thinking, in quotes, which was really reasoning, to write a formal proof of why its formula was correct. And then humans checked that work and confirmed that the AI was right. So here we have AI going so much further than like summarizing a textbook. It is literally a scientist. It found a pattern humans missed, then proved it. We are seeing that AI is moving as a tool so much further than like writing some emails and to being like this partner that is going to discover like universal laws.
I bet we're going to see a ton of these, right? Where understandings, theorems, I mean, this happens in science all the time, right? We thought we understood something and then somebody takes a fresh look at it. But the ability to amplify the fresh look, by such a significant degree. And that is like this bright byte territory because it's like machine learning and predictive AI, sometimes AI vision. So we'll keep talking about these. And Liz and I are doing a fun conference in just a little bit in Connecticut, big math conference. And we'll talk about this too, right? I mean, AI is sometimes having a very hard time with basic computation and at the same time doing like remarkable work solving, for math proofs that basically folks haven't been able to wrestle before. So neat intersection. All right, Liz, this is the end of episode 99. That means that next week is episode 100.
We better be together because I've got some surprises in store.
Oh, do you? I don't have any surprises.
Well, you just wait because I've got some good ones.
All right, we'll let you be the queen, the maven of surprises on this episode. But if folks, we've had a couple lovely notes, and again, we're just going to share like one or two of these, 2 or 3. But yeah, if you have anything to share, www.skills21.org/ChatEDU100. So feel free to give us a shout, and as always, reach out anytime. Liz and I are going to just emails a few a day, which is just really lovely from people asking us questions or commenting on things. So keep
sharing
the conversation
articles.
Going. Yeah, sharing articles is great,
Yeah.
So please keep it up. We're deeply grateful. And Liz, we will, no matter what, even if I have to like ride a group of reindeers to the office, we will see you in Litchfield next Monday for episode 100. Can't wait. So it must be time to
roll the credits.
No rolling R's here for episode 99?
No, because I just got to figure out what I'm going to do for 100.
Oh, I see. Interesting. All right. Fantastic. We'll see you soon, Doc. Thanks.
As always, we'd love to hear what you think. So please let us know at ChatEDU@edadvance.org. That's EDADVANCE.org. And also rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are using. ChatEDU is brought to you by EdAdvance, the nonprofit regional education service center in Litchfield, Connecticut. This episode of ChatEDU is sponsored by the National Center for Next Generation Manufacturing. ChatEDU is recorded, edited, and produced by Andre Angelo and Justin Pasco, whose dedication and expertise bring our discussions to life. ChatEDU's executive producer is the multi-talented rock star Cameron Audia. Additionally, we are grateful for the support of our colleague Gary Robinson, and we appreciate his time and talents. And of course, a big ChatEDU shout out to our fearless leader and executive director, Jonathan Costa, for inspiring the pod. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to our listeners for joining us on this journey exploring the thoughtful and innovative integration of AI in education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Costa, and I am the Executive Director at EdAdvance, and I want you to know how much we appreciate our listeners. If you enjoy the podcast, feel free to explore EdAdvance's other AI services, which include customized professional learning of all kinds, conferences, our new middle and high school student AI literacy course, and our Educator and Leader micro-credential, co-sponsored by the Southern Connecticut State University Office of Workforce and Lifelong Learning. Just visit skills21.org/AI to learn more. That's all for now, and thank you for listening to ChatEDU.